Good afternoon, class. This is Dual Academy here, and today you have stepped into the Top 10 Meta Decks 101 with Professor So as your professor.
Guess that leaves me, Alex, as the TA, but here we go.
I hope you're all ready to experience what will change your perspective of dueling forever. Now, let's get started. So, of course, 10 is a very arbitrary number, and we wanted to include some different other decks that are decent, but just didn't make the list. So, we have our honorable mentions, which are Evil Swarm,
YuGiOh, and Prophecy.
You see, these three decks were meta once, with the exception
And could
of
be,
most
probably
of
could
YuGiOh.
be.
But they all just aren't quite good enough. There's something missing from them that doesn't give them the speed or the consistency or the power to just match up with the meta.
And for Prophecy, it's 2 Fate, like, that's the reason.
Yes.
Fate's a 1. I mean, it's a good card, but it's Prophecy just can't exactly... I mean, World build, you have consistency problems. Priestess build, you have explosion problems.
Yeah,
Senju?
Evil Swarm are just simply not fast enough. Like, if they get beat out the first time, they'll get beat out for the rest of the duel.
And Senju, if you get hit by that one Mirror Force, you quite literally lose.
And, of course, we have our honorable mention, possibly the most overrated deck of the format, which is Hero. They just aren't that good.
It's a great budget deck, and it's good for newer players, but heroes just cannot stand up to battle traps or monsters with any reasonable amount of attack. Like, Darklaw being the 2400 like little body is honestly a problem. I get it, heroes are great, everyone loves them, but they're really not a top 10 deck.
Until Stratos comes back.
Not a top 10.
Yeah. So let's get started with number 10. First we have our little fiery friends.
The Volcanics. Now, some people could argue this deck hasn't done anything since it's one top, but I would just argue that its ability to burn and nuke boards is just like it's just too good. Like as far as the not really big meta decks go, this is about as good as it gets. Nukes boards, does burn damage and just overall has really strong control and stun plays. So your opponent will be like looking for a play to make, and just when they're ready to go off, here comes that scatter shot, and then bam, field's gone.
And also, because they're not that popular, people don't know how to play against them that well.
It's one of the things where, like, I mean, the guy topped, he went 12-0 because everyone's like, what the fuck are Volcanics?
Yeah.
And that still holds true to this day. So that's what we put him at number 10.
Hey, you, stop sleeping in class. Alright. Number 9, Black Wings. Our feathery friends have made a return finally.
So I've been saying this and taking it to locals a lot. This deck just has, I mean, it has all of its power cards again. It has everything at 3. Overall, Gale is still a good card. Blizzard is a fantastic card again. Oh my god, is that supposed to be Blizzard? Blizzard's a really good card again. Shura is good, and the new guy Chris is really good. Also, so is Pinaki. So basically, the deck got a bunch of really good support cards to go along with everything being a 3. And frankly, the deck is kind of like Volcanics, where people have forgotten what Black Wings can and will do to you. And they're still like the best battle phase deck in the game right now with Black Sonic and Kalut. That's why I think they're a good number 9. Your opinions?
I mean, I got beat by them. They just have so much, as you said, battle phase presence. You just get beat. You can't negate all their effects because some are in the hand, some are on the field, like Gale's on the field, and then Kalut's in the hand. It's just, you can't do everything. You can't stop them. They have one way. They'll get a way to knock you out.
Indeed.
Number 8?
Number 8, we have our... So 8 is where we had to do a little bit of thinking. Because 9 and 10 are like pretty simple, but 8 is where we decided to put Stellar Knights. Now this may seem low to some people, but Matt and I have come to the agreement that the deck is probably the second most overhyped deck in the format, where it has really solid plays, but the plays are linear and stoppable. Like, for example, Mind Crush, Altair, good luck winning Stellar Knight player. MSTs, set to go. Good thing, if I have MSTs and Mind Crush, I'm confident I'll beat a Stellar Knight player, just because Mind Crush Altair ruins them.
Yeah, and like with all 4 decks, they just have that sort of grind thing where they're not as explosive as other decks, and they're not as powerful as the other decks either.
It's one of those problems where like they grind well, but so does Burning Abyss, so does Shadal's.
When you
Even
rely
Fleetforce can
solely
grind.
on your 4 rank Xyzes, there's gonna be problems there.
Still a really good deck, but just I feel like the meta is not in their favor right now. Moving on to number 7. I have 3.5 Axis Fire Fists. So, I want to give Jeff Jones some credit for doing really good in the last event, but this deck is solid. Like, I never would have... I didn't expect that 3 Spirit would do so much for this deck. But 3 Spirit and 2 Wolf Park apparently is a deadly combo, because you're running 5 monsters that are basically monster reborns in and of themselves, and just how easy it is to get off a Horse Prince. Basically, Firefist is a deck which has explosive like plays now and grind control through its 3.5 axis build. Anything else to add?
That's
supposed to be Spirit.
and that's Rooster.
That's Rooster. It's explosive. It generates advantage really well. Like honestly, Firefist generates advantage similar to Prophecy. How like they take dead cards and make them live, and then take the dead cards and reuse them to make them live again later.
Exactly. It's the deck that we never saw.
The deck that I didn't see coming, but I honestly think has a fine place at around 7 right
Well,
now.
like we never got a chance to see it in action.
Because Spirit was immediately limited.
Yeah. Which was kind of mean, but...
It was kind of mean, but now we know why it had to be limited. Number
Especially
6.
in the slower meta back then. Number 6 we have...
Infernoids, aka Dark Lightsworns.
So, with Lightsworns basically getting murdered by that unfortunate Dragon Roller band, we have another use for them, besides just occupying space in our trade binders.
So, basically it comes down to charge of the Light Brigade being at 2. And that helped this deck a lot more than people realize, because you run charge, and apparently in a newer build you run Rhodas, and you get very good searching power on your Raidens and Luminas, which basically mill for you and turn dead cards in hand like your Saitsumas, which is live in both the hand and the grave. You put it in grave, especially on the Lightsworn, get access to 7s and 8s through the deck. And you just the Lightsworn engine lets you run Dantes comfortably with 2 Luminas and 3 Harmodics. Basically, the deck is Lightsworns, but more control-y. Less explosive, but more control. And it has one of the best boss monsters, period.
Yeah, it's just a more consistent version of Lightsworns, I guess you could say. And tons of options, too.
Overall, I think it makes a nice place around 6.
Number 5, we have another new deck. Well, relatively new.
Ritual Beasts. So, I'm going to call this deck New Infernity, because that's basically what it does. But instead of abusing Archfiend, you abuse Ulti Kanahawk, which basically you can you activate his effect and then use his own effect to bounce himself back to the extra deck. So you don't have to pay 2 monsters to get off the 1 search. You pay 1 monster, and through things like Kanahawk and Pengo, which basically dump cards to the Banished Zone and Graveyard, you are able to constantly generate a ton of resources by getting Ritual Beasts through Ulti Kanahawk, by abusing Steeds and Ambush, and basically just by using their really good effects to defuse to like make them almost untargetable. Basically, the deck has a lot of speed, a lot of strength, and a lot of search power, and just deadly combos. And with Vanities at 1, and with like a lot of these other Floodgates at 1, the deck can really flourish in a basically an environment which lacks heavy-duty anti-summon Floodgates.
Number 4, we have...
Our friends from below, the Burning Abyss.
So they took quite the topple from their pedestal down into the underworld, I guess you could say.
The underworld of the meta.
You know, Dante's still chilling down over here.
Dante's still a good card. Firelight's still a good card. Virgil's still a good card. Pretty much every Burning Abyss monster is still a pretty good card. Now, unfortunately, they've had to switch from their previously like aggressive and like fairly high speed pace
to
more
aggro control just to control now.
Yeah, I mean, because now the deck is heavily relying on Firelights and Virgils to clear boards and then push in with Dantes for damage. Deck is still very solid though. So
the only thing is you're not outspeeding anybody.
Yeah, you aren't outspeeding anyone. You're winning through like the pure plus and grand game.
Think about it as like one of those old athletes, so they can't beat them beat other people based on raw athleticism.
But they beat them with their
skill and
with their experience in their mind. Yeah. So Burning Abyss makes a nice 4.
Now another old deck, but this one actually got a little buff with the recent ban list.
We have our mind-controlled-ish little devils, the Shaddolls. Shaddolls are a deck which, honestly, their power increased relatively because a lot of other meta decks just frankly got worse, and they didn't. Windows at 3, Constructs at 3.
Like,
wow.
what problems in life can you have?
Like, I mean, it's one of the things where, like, the deck hasn't lost any power, whereas other meta decks have lost significant power. So the deck should be solid. It's not... also, the builds which people tend to run now is a lot of explosive, OTK-ish, kind of like heavy damage kind of build. But people are forgetting that just sitting on Window can be a pretty good play sometimes.
Especially with the toolbox potential, and in that their fusions do everything that they need. They have like something for every possible scenario, especially with the new one coming out.
And in May, they have a new card which completely demolishes Satellanites and, whatchamacalls, Necros. So like, that Anomalilith or whatever it's going to be called in the English version, it's just like, it's one of those cards where like, it shouldn't have been made because it's a you can't play the game card.
It's just unfair.
Yeah.
Number 2.
We have Cleafort. This deck is honestly not as bad as everyone said it would be after the hit. It's not as strong as it used to be, but quite frankly, it still just has a fantastic grind game, good advantage generation, and just it's a rare deck that can both explode and play the grind game.
Yeah, because they have recurring monsters every single turn. And they can still get Scout relatively easily. It's not that hard for them to get Scout.
And they still have all those bounce and pop effects off their tributes. And sacrifice 1/1, sure it hurts, but now it's more of the abuse of stealth and abusing their other cards as opposed to abusing their speed. But overall, it's still a really good deck, and I think people like overreacted after the hit, but it's still second, honestly, in my opinion, after a huge hit. And I think it'll do things.
And now, of course, you must know the number 1.
Necros. I mean, it's boring, but there really isn't another choice.
There's no answer to what number 1 is besides Necros. I mean, maybe when Shaddolls get their fusion,
They'll be number 1.
but I don't think so. Because Shaddolls will beat Necros sometimes, but
they'll probably
about
still
the
lose.
overall matchups,
They'll probably
Necros
lose
has
to
the
Clear.
best one out of all of them.
Mm-hmm. It's just that the deck is sure lost some cards, but it still searches better than any other deck in like the history of the game. Necros of Trishula is still a really good card. Necros of Valk, dumb Battle Fader card, and Necros of Brionac the 2 still a good search and or like on summon card. Basically, the deck just has a lot of really good effects, and its ability to just like toolbox and search and like basically turn any one card into any other card is just too powerful in this current game of Yu-Gi-Oh! We're like, it's just a good deck. And it's unfortunate that it has to be a boring number 1 choice, but it is the number 1 choice.
Yeah, that about wraps up our top 10.
Let us know what you think in the comments below and what you want to see from us in the future. And also, let us know if you agree with our top 10 or disagree based on our picks. I mean, a few of our picks were kind of controversial, but overall I think this is honestly kind of a fairly safe list moving forward.
Class dismissed.
All right.